Hi folks, this is Ken Clairbout, K4ZW. Glad you could join us. Our topic today is the N1mm logger in-depth Part 1 overview, and this is Part 1 of a two-part series. Part 2 covering digital modes and multi-op will be next Tuesday at the same time, and you can register it by going to www.pvrc.org and clicking on the upcoming webinars link. So we have a team that put together the presentation for us, but Pete Smith, N4ZR, is going to lead it. So Pete, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Let me introduce my partners in crime here. N2IC is one of the key programmers of the n1mm logger contest program for the last 4 or 5 years, and a well-known contester. I don't think he needs any introduction. K8UT Larry in Michigan is an active RTTY contester. He is our webmaster, our keeper of the wiki, and general overall audio-video guy. And Rich, VE3KI, up around Ottawa, is an active RTTY contester, takes care of the digital documentation, and does a lot of user support on the website. So we think we've got a reasonably deep group here. I'm kind of an overall documentation wrangler and help provider. So among us, at least we can provide an opening presentation here, and then next week we'll get into some more depth on a couple of the specific sub areas that that N1mm does particularly well. So that'll be a week from Tuesday night, or March the 6th. So with that, let's move on down into the presentation. Then I should hasten to say that because this is an overview, it may be a little general for some of you who are already users of the program, but at the same time I hope that maybe we'll bring some things forward that you haven't thought about, or that can be explained on this medium better than perhaps they have been so far. So hang in, and here we go. Now, the basics of N1mm are pretty much the same as any other contest logger. They all have to do all of these things and do them relatively well and relatively problem-free. And you know, I did a presentation last year for the Contest University in Dayton, and I contrasted N1mm write log and WinTest with respect to all of these points. But tonight we're just talking about N1mm. So we'll be addressing each of these in turn. The first is QSO entry. For those of us who are used to be users of DOS contesting programs, this looks a little different at first glimpse, but it really is a very flexible device. What N1mm uses is a couple of either one or two floating windows, depending on whether you're operating single operator 1 radio, single operator 1 radio 2 VFOs, or single operator 2 radio, in which case you'd have 2 entry windows. The box here, this one is the call sign field, and that's where you would type in a person's call sign. And then you would get over here to the received exchange window. In this case, this was set up not actually for ARRL CW as the log below would suggest, but for WPX. But it's the same idea in either case. You get over to the received exchange, you type in the received exchange, and you go on your way. You have your choice of operation, which looks a lot like CT for those of you who have used that DOS program. You also have an option of using the semicolon and single quote keys, which are right next to each other on an American keyboard, to do the 2 steps of a contest QSO. Or you can use what we call enter sends messages, or ESM. You can also use a mouse. You can click on the 12 function keys that you see here in the entry window to send the content of each of those. You can also click on all sorts of other things on the screen to perform all sorts of other functions. And finally, there's a gadget that we call the call frame. If you look up here at the TN2T, he's not actually in the call sign field yet, but he's right above it. And if you call him, for example, if you were to click on F4 or any of the alternatives for that, it would pull him down into the call sign field and send your cursor over to the exchange field over here. And why is that good? Well, if you're operating assisted and you're tuning down the band map, the first place where any station will appear is in the call frame up here above the call sign field. And it's not until you decide whether you're going to call him or not that he actually moves down into the call sign field here. So it's a pretty flexible system. Like TR-log, for those of you who remember that, n1mm logger is modal. That is, it has separate run and search and pounce modes. The run mode is selected in a number of ways, one of which would be simply to click in this little window here. But in any case, you have 12 messages for running, and you have 12 more messages for search and pounce operation. After you log each QSO, they appear in a separate log window, which is shown here. In this case, what I had done to make this display was I typed TI5W into the call sign field, and it simply reflected all of the QSOs that I had previously with TI5W. And you can see I'd already run a clean sweep with him, so you know, that was a quick, easy reference. Now, moving down here, we've already pretty well covered this subject, but one of the things I should mention is that in addition to text messages, or in the case of phone WAV files, the function keys can also contain many, many flexible macros. And what am I saying by macro? I'm not using the term the way a lot of the RIDI guys use it. These are expressions which, when you put them into a message, either carry out a program function or grab a piece of information from the program and send it as either CW or RIDI. And so, for example, you could have a macro built into your F3TU message that would automatically switch to the other radio in an SO2R setup and send a CQ, and then switch back to this radio to hold two frequencies simultaneously, or do dueling CQs, or whatever you had in mind. Another feature that frankly the jury is still out on, I think, is that n1mm supports the voicing of call signs and serial numbers. That means that, at least hypothetically, you could have the other station's call sign or a serial number in a serial number contest automatically spoken for you by the program, so you wouldn't have to do it yourself. And as far as numbers are concerned, we used to just do sort of 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of things. Now we have the capability of doing 1,100 or 1,234 with all of those cues that help people to hear and understand. But as I say, it's pretty tricky to get stored numerals and letters that sound natural when you string them together. So, you know, some folks will like to do that, other folks won't. Okay, moving along, I mentioned enter-sends messages. This is a way of operating that was devised originally by N6TR for TR-log. And essentially the idea is that you shouldn't have to go chasing all over your keyboard looking for the function keys that you need at a particular point in a QSO. And at this stage, I've got a video here that was made for us by Larry, K8UT, and I'm going to play it and let you hear for yourself how ESM works.
The purpose of this video is to demonstrate n1mm logger's ESM, enter sends messages, in both search and pounce and run modes. To begin with, let's take a look at a conventional contact in a CW QSO. You find a station you want to work, you enter their call sign into the QSO entry field, and then you give him a call, in this case by pressing F4. If the station replies to you, you'd press the tab key to work your way over to the received field and enter in the exchange you received from the other station. Upon entering that, you then press some key to send your exchange to him. You then hang out and wait to hear him send a TU, a thank you message, to acknowledge that he received your exchange, and you'd press some fourth button to log this QSO. In all, 4 keystrokes, all different buttons, to log each contact in a CW contest. Let's contrast that to using ESM. First, we'll enable ESM, which involves a single click in our configuration window, and you'll notice that the moment ESM is enabled, the screen looks a little different. In this case, the F4 button is highlighted blue. What the highlight means is that when you press the enter key, that's what's going to happen. So let's go through another sample QSO. We hear a station we want to work, we type in that station's call sign, and rather than pressing F4 in this instance, we merely hit the enter key. Notice that the cursor automatically advanced over to the received field, and now the F8 key, again, is highlighted. That's because if we don't get a report from the other station, if we hit enter, it'll send again to the other station. However, assuming we get that report, the moment we start typing in a legitimate report, notice F8 is unhighlighted and the F2 key is now highlighted. What that means is if I hit the enter key, we'll send the report to the other station and log this QSO. We're ready for our next contact in the contest. So we've gone from 4 keystrokes without ESM, all different buttons, to 2 keystrokes with ESM, in each case merely pressing the enter key. Let's take a look at how that would work in run mode. We put n1mm logger in run mode and call CQ. If we receive a response from a station, notice there are now 2 buttons highlighted, F5, his call, and F2, exchange. What that means is if I hit the enter key, that's what's going to get sent. The F8 key is again highlighted. If I don't get a report from the other station, pressing enter will send again to that station. However, let's assume we get a report. Notice the moment there's a legitimate report, 2 other keys are highlighted, the logit key and the F3 TU, thank you key. Again, all I need to do is hit the enter key a 3rd time. That contact is now logged, and we're ready to press the enter key and begin a new QSO. So as in the case of search and pounce mode, we now can work our way through QSOs rather than having to press F4, F2, F3, F1. You now merely have to hit the enter key to log QSOs. Thanks a lot for listening. 7-3.
Once again, just as in the live broadcast, we had some fairly serious desynchronization of the audio and video. I hope that was somewhat coherent. I don't know what we can do about it. It seems to be something that's built into this GoToWebinar program, at least in its current state, or in the relationship between it and PowerPoint. Anyway, moving along, one of the other things you obviously need to do in a contest program is to check and make sure that the QSO you are thinking about making is not a duplicate. And in that respect, what n1mm does is to offer you a choice between what they call n+1 or exact match. In the case of exact match, for example, if you typed in DL6FB, it would display for you in the check window all of the call signs that contained exactly DL6FB. If, on the other hand, you select N+1, it will show you everything that either contains the letters that you have typed in or contains all of them but one. So, for example, in this case, using the N+1 mode, we've typed in DL6FB, and the program says, yeah, DL6FBL, you already worked him. FBH, you haven't worked. The color coding, by the way, is key. The black means it's a dupe. Blue means it's a new QSO. And red and green mean that it is either a single or a double malt. And these color codes are carried throughout the program. But anyway, for purposes here, you can see that in addition to telling you that the station you're hearing might be DL6FA, it's also telling you it might be DL7FB or DL9FB. And the dupes are flagged both in the check window and in the entry window, where just to the right of all the entry fields, a great big red dupe appears. Now, of course, you can work dupes if you want to, and in fact, most of us do work dupes, but it at least tells you what's going on. And generally speaking, the program will not allow you to call a station that it knows to be a dupe. So that's a helpful thing. It saves you feeling like a lid a lot of the time. At least it helps me avoid that. Okay, like most of these programs, n1mm has band maps. And here are those color codes I was telling you about. Each of the call signs on the band map is flagged for you in terms of whether it would be a new QSO, a new single malt, or a new double malt. And if you choose to do so, you can also have stations shown on there that are either not workable in this particular contest or that are already dupes, so that you can avoid wasting time on them. Of course, you don't get all these spots unless you're operating assisted, but you can have the band map show the stations that you've already worked on a given band in that time period, so that if you are tuning quickly across doing search and pounce, you don't have to waste time on a frequency which probably is somebody that you've already worked. Now, the band maps, as you might expect, are clickable. You can also use hotkeys from the keyboard to move up and down either to the next good QSO or the next malt. You can send CQ on a frequency, quickly QSY to work a station, search and pounce, and then with a single mouse click or hotkey, get back to the CQ frequency and send another CQ, at which point probably K4ZW or somebody will already have shown up on the frequency, but that's just life. Anyhow, the band maps are zoomable and they're resizable, so you can move them anywhere on the screen you want to. And they give you a constant readout at the top of what you have turned on, of what frequencies you're on, so on and so forth. One of the important things that I like to harp on is capabilities for decision support. In other words, should I move to 10 yet, or is 15 still where I should be? And if I've worked somebody, is he a new malt on another band? Do I want to try to move him? Or alternatively, have I already worked him on 3 bands and I know I'll be able to get him on 80 tonight, that kind of thing. Well, that is displayed for you in the form of the color codes on the band buttons, and also the numbers that you see in the columns on the window, reading across from left to right. That tells you that at this moment 20 meters is the most multiplier-rich band for you. either 20 or 15 has the most available QSOs. And that number, I should tell you, there are two components there. The left-hand number before the slash is the number of stations that you can still work, whereas the other number on the other side of the slash is the number of total stations that have been spotted on the band that are workable by anybody. And the reason that's useful is that you can see the band open, even if late in a contest, for example, there aren't very many people for you to work. You can know that maybe that's a band that is starting to open and you ought to get there and call CQ. The color codes also tell you, I think I already mentioned this about moving people to another band. The buttons themselves can be clicked upon to move the radio to another band. A left click will move the left-hand radio in an SO2R setup or SO2V, and a right click will move the right-hand radio. So you've got pretty much everything you need right there in that one window. Now I mentioned DX cluster interfaces. The principal DX cluster interface for n1mm logger is in the lower pane of the available window right here. Again, the color codes are there: single mults, double mults. A click on the call sign will put it into the entry window to work and move the radio to that frequency. You can sort any of these columns by clicking on the headings here, and as a result, you can, for example, if you don't want to be turning your beam all over the place, you can sort by direction, for example, and work everybody who's, for example, around 45 degrees, looking into Europe. Or you can sort by timestamp, and if you're listening to the reverse beacon network, you can try to catch them as soon as they show up in the available window, which could well be before they finish their first or second CQ. So there's lots of fun things you can do with that part of the window. The info window is another part of the decision-making suite, and that's principally used for rate calculations and for measuring your performance relative to goals. It's fairly self-explanatory. This window here shows you the rate for the last 10 QSOs and this for the last 100. This button here tells you what the goal is for the current hour, and the green background tells you at a glance that you've already, you're satisfying that goal. The yellow background on these two, this one is from an hour ago, and this one here is from the top of the last clock hour, tells you that you're below expectations for those two segments. And this here, this bar graph is showing you in segments of 6 or 10 minutes what your performance is relative to the goal. The goal is the line here, and the bar tells you at a glance what the trend is in your rate. So this decision support suite does a pretty good job of telling you where you are and what you ought to do next. At least that's our hope. Now, I was going to run this demo, but I've tried to explain it as much as I can because we're having some difficulty with our audio and video synchronization. We can try it again, but I suspect that it's going to be a bust, and if it is, I'm going to stop it quickly as soon as it gets out of sync again.
The purpose of this video is to describe the n1mm logger available mults and cues window so that you can take best advantage of it when running a contest. I'm running the NAQP RTTY contest this weekend, and in front of you see the n1mm logger entry window, the two panels associated with MMTTY, the available mults and cues window, and to the left of that, the band map. The available mults and cues window is divided into two panes, an upper pane and a lower pane. The upper pane has 3 columns. The center column is a set of push buttons, which are the available HF bands. You notice that 20 is highlighted right now. That's because that's the band we're on. If I click one of these buttons, I can change bands, and that changed the band in the radio and also the band in the band map. By left-clicking, I change radio 1, VFO-A, and if I'm running SO2V or SO2R, by right-clicking, I could change the opposite radio, radio 2 or VFO-B. In the first column are available multipliers on that band. You'll notice that one of them is colored in red, 13. That shows that 20 meters is the hottest band right now for multipliers. The most available points are available on that band. If I mouse over that number, the call signs of those 13 stations appear in front of me. So I can take a look and make an educated decision of when it's time for me to change bands and get to 20 meters. Over on the right-hand side is the available QSOs column. The first...
Well, I'm afraid this is getting very badly out of sync, so we're gonna leave it for tonight until we can figure out what this technical problem is. But I should mention that videos covering both ESM and the available window are available on the n1mm logger website under the support heading. So if you're interested in pursuing these subjects further or seeing some of the good work that Larry did, that's the place to go look. Now, what about digital modes? We mentioned that earlier. n1mm logger has extensive support for digital modes, and in fact it's now judged to be best overall among the Windows logging programs, and that's going to be covered next week. Multi-operator situations, it's also very feature-rich. It has a full set of features for passing things between stations, and even partner mode where you can identify and queue up stations for a partner to work if you're working together in a multi-op position. SO2R is a topic that N2IC is very fond of, and Steve could hold forth on that for an hour all by himself, and we can do it if there is interest. So what do I suggest you do until next week? Well, first of all, why don't you download the program? It's free, and you can get it down from n1mm.com. The website and the reflector provide a lot of support from over 4,000 users and the n1mm programming team, who are reading traffic on the reflector every single day. There's an extensive wiki-based manual. We try to revise it daily as things come up, and it's organized into the Getting Started and Digging Deeper sections specifically to help make it accessible to new users. So what I can urge you to do between now and next week is to try it out, think up the questions you have, and come see us then. So thanks for listening.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Pete, and thanks to your team for putting together that great presentation. And I think based on some of the feedback we've gotten already, that we may look at an SO2R presentation at some point. And once again, just to reiterate what Pete said, those videos that we tried playing on here, which started getting out of sync, are available on the n1m web page, so you can check those out as well. All right, thanks everyone. Thank you, Pete, and we'll see you for part 2 next week. Take care, everyone. So long. Bye-bye.